I'm just gonna say it. Most kids' jiu-jitsu classes are painful to watch. Not because the coaches don't care, they do. Not because the kids are bad, they're not. But because we've somehow decided that the best way to teach kids how to move is to make them stand still. Lines, drilling, waiting their turn, trying to remember steps, and then we wonder why half the room switches off. That's why I use games. And that's why I use the constraints-led approach. Not because it's trendy, not because it's scientific, but because it actually makes sense. Here is the simplest way I can explain CLA without kind of turning this into a lecture. The constraint-led approach is about learning through the situation, not memorizing instructions. Instead of saying step 1, step 2, step 3, we ask, what does this kid need to do to solve the problem that's in front of them? We manipulate the space, the task, the goal, and the movement comes out of that. No checklist, no perfect technique demo burned into their memory, just problem solving through movement. And that is exactly how kids learn best. Kids don't want to remember instructions. They want to do something. One of my biggest issues with traditional kids coaching is how much it values how things look. We get obsessed with the right grip, the right angle, the right sequence, and we unintentionally train kids to believe that there's one correct answer. But jiu-jitsu doesn't work like that, and neither does learning. When kids only ever copy, they don't learn how to adapt. They learn how to repeat. And the second something feels unfamiliar, they freeze. CLA gives kids permission to explore, to try, to fail, to adjust. That creativity is not a bonus. It's the whole point. Games work because they give kids 3 things immediately. 1, a clear goal. 2, a reason to move. And 3, constant feedback. You don't need to motivate kids to try harder in a game. The game does that for you. They're moving the whole time. They're responding to their partner. They're making decisions without overthinking. And the best part, they feel successful. Even the kid who usually would struggle in technical classes suddenly lights up because now the learning matches how they're wired. This is where a lot of coaches get tripped up. Adding a game after teaching technique is not the same thing as CLA. If you spend 10 minutes explaining half guard to a group of 5-year-olds and then you drill it and then you add a game, you've already told them exactly how you want it done. At that point, the game is just, can you repeat this with resistance? That's not the constraint-led approach. CLA flips the order. The game is the teacher. Now, this doesn't mean you never show anything, and this is a massive misunderstanding. You absolutely can demonstrate ideas, highlight concepts, and pause and reflect, but you're just not spoon-feeding solutions. You're guiding discovery. This part matters a lot. Games don't look the same across all of the age groups, and they shouldn't. At ages 3 to 5, developmentally, a lot of kids here are still in something called onlooker play and parallel play. They struggle with complex goals, anticipating resistance, and remembering multiple objectives. So the games need to be simple. One job, one focus. And that's why something like Dirty Feet works so well. Bottom player, keep your legs in front. That's it. Top player, get chest to chest. Now, suddenly, the top player has a clear task, the bottom player stays engaged, movement happens naturally. Even resistance shows up more consistently because the task makes sense. At ages 6 to 9, now you can start layering. Still games, still clear goals, but you can add directional goals, simple decisions, and cause and effect. They're better at understanding, if I do this, my partner reacts like that. So your constraints can become slightly more complex without overwhelming them. For older kids and teens, this is where people make a huge mistake. They stop using games, which makes no sense. Games don't disappear, they evolve. The goals become more complex, the constraints get tighter, the problems get more specific, but the learning is still live, adaptive, and decision-based. This is how you develop real jiu-jitsu. For me, CLA isn't about rejecting technique. It's about respecting how kids actually learn. I have seen kids understand positions deeply, retain concepts long-term, and solve problems creatively, all without drilling. And honestly, some of these kids have a better feel for Jiu-Jitsu than adults who have been drilling for years, because they're not memorizing, they are understanding. If any of this resonates, especially if you're coaching kids and thinking, yeah, this feels like what I've been missing, that's exactly what we unpack inside my school community. How to design games properly, match them to developmental stages, use CLA without losing structural control. Not theory, not buzzwords, just what actually works on the mats. The link's gonna be below. No pressure, just a space for coaches who want their classes to actually make more sense. And if you like this video, I would recommend you to watch this one here, where I turn boring drills into fun BJJ kids games.